5 times daily you would flee to the dark and dusty dungeons. It was here that you learned the Quran. It was here that you practiced your Iman. La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah.
Now, this is the first time that the occasion of the unbanning of Islam is being celebrated in South Africa. Several events are to be held to celebrate the event. To tell us more about the commemoration and the history of Islam, we are joined in the studio by Zainal Abidin Kaji, coordinator of the Bicentennial Commemoration in Gauteng. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. But in history, why was it banned in South Africa?
I think what we need to look at the banning in international context at the time, because there was a whole range of colonization taking place in the Dutch colonies, for example in Indonesia, in South India, West India, in Sri Lanka, parts of Africa, and this colonization was actually probably prompted the whole banning of Islam, because those particular areas that were colonized were predominantly Muslim areas, and there was already resistance to Dutch colonialism in those areas. And many of the people that came down to South Africa were actually brought in exile, or they were brought as slaves to South Africa. So presumably the Dutch at that time didn't want the spread of Islam in South Africa.
How important is the heritage of Islam to the history of South Africa?
I think the whole heritage actually helped to grow Islam in this country. For example, for 150 years there was no development at all, and that 1804 law was a turning point in the whole growth and development of Islam in this country. And that led on to, I think we must just remember that while there was religious freedom, there was no political freedom. There were still lots of other restrictions in place. For example, carrying of passes, or property rights, or marriage rights, and also economic rights. So there were a whole range of restrictions that were still in place. But I think the granting of space for public worship was really the beginning of the growth of teaching of Islam in public, the building of mosques, the building of community infrastructure.
But, just to tell viewers that we are aware that there is something wrong with your mic, but that's why you're holding that one. I think we are working on the sound, however.
Okay.
Zainal, Islam, if I'm not mistaken, is probably or possibly one of the fastest growing religions in the world, and in South Africa it's really gaining momentum. Over the past 200 years, how has it grown?
I think the community has had the sense of very strong attachment to their faith, and that wherever they went, and we see that happening even now since the democracy in South Africa, where people have been moving into different areas, into new areas, and you're finding that mosques are springing up all over. And I think this is part of the culture and religious calling of Muslims, that wherever they are, they start building their own infrastructure. So I think, and of course, there is the inherent quality of Islam as well, as a faith that gives people peace and harmony and satisfaction.
But I mean, in South Africa, it's unbelievable to actually, I mean, everywhere you're driving, you're seeing mosques being built, and it's really being taken in this country as well, in South Africa.
I think that could be attributed as well to the kind of broad freedom that we do enjoy in this country, and more so in the last 10 years. And there's been, you know, in a sense, the community itself has been self-built, because we should just remember also that there was no foreign or very little foreign aid. But largely, this community has developed through its own efforts. It was more of a self-reliant, self-built thing. The range of mosques, the schools, the growth of Islamic schools in this country, it's all community-built and self-built. There's no government aid whatsoever.
Are we finding that this is a culture within South Africans, or is it majority immigrants that are coming into South Africa?
No, I think it's South Africans. I think it is South Africans. The flow of immigrants has been very recent. because I think due to apartheid and once the import of migrant labor was stopped in the 20th century, I think the growth has been really South African and organic. So very little immigration, the immigration has been really very recent.
How has that impacted on the religion? Because, I mean, we're getting a lot of facets coming and people from different parts of the world into South Africa. Has it had any influence?
I think as we go along now, it will have an impact, because now it's opening up. The contact between Muslims and the outside world is growing. Muslims are becoming, from a position of being a minority in this country, suddenly with Africa opening up, it's now a majority on the African continent. The travel and communication systems have improved, the internet. So I think that's really, the global village is also impacting on this growth, and I think that I'm quite positive that in the future we're going to see much more growth as well.
Most definitely. I mean, it's an exciting time ahead of you, I'm sure. Yes. Now, this is the very, very first time that you are actually commemorating this event. Why now? I mean, it was unbanned such a long time ago. Why did you decide to do it now?
I think that it's also a question of people not realizing the importance of this event. There has been research done. A prominent person by the name of the late Ahmed Davids, who was really the pioneer in recording all this information, and he passed away a few years ago. And this actually came about as some research that was done more recently. There was a group of people that went to a conference in Uganda and came across this 1804 law that was passed, and we discussed it amongst ourselves and said, shouldn't this be something that should be commemorated? And we discussed this with international people like Ali Mazrui, who's famous for his programs on the BBC on Islam or the Africans, the Triple Heritage programs that he ran. And there was a lot of excitement about it, and we felt, well, we should present this to the community, and that's when we started looking at talking to the community about it. And I think there's been lots of excitement, lots of organizations, the major Muslim organizations in the country, like the Muslim Judicial Council, have endorsed this particular project, and I think that bodes very well for the project for the future.
How will the rest of South Africans be involved in this project?
Well, it's difficult, but I think what we're trying to do is to encourage people on the ground to commemorate this event through different ways. One of the projects that we've got is where we're encouraging schools and the traditional Muslim schools, the madrasas, to enter into a competition, a poster, essay, a theme song competition. Then we're also encouraging them to have cultural events, and hopefully we are planning to, as the Bicentennial Commission, planning to have some major events towards the end of September, culminating on the 24th of September, which is Heritage Day in South Africa.
We wish you all the best with these commemorations. Congratulations, and thank you so much for coming into the studio to chat to us this morning.
Thank you.
5 times daily you would flee to the dark and dusty dungeons. It was here that you learned the Quran. It was here that you practiced your Iman. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha